The world is watching closely, as a prominent figure has stirred significant conversation by appointing a new security company with ties to Russia. This decision has sparked a wave of reactions across various sectors, political, business, and diplomatic. The implications of this move are profound, as it raises concerns about alliances, trust, and security in an increasingly interconnected global landscape. The choice to engage a security firm linked to Russia, in particular, is sending ripples through international relations. In a time where geopolitical tensions are already high, this step is perceived by many as a strategic shift, one that could signal a re-evaluation of existing alliances. For some, this move is seen as a pragmatic approach to strengthening security measures. However, for others, it represents a troubling pivot toward controversial associations, which may raise questions about the intentions behind such a decision. On one side, there are those who argue that in an era of heightened threats, the priority should be on securing resources and personnel, regardless of the source of that security. These supporters view the choice as a necessary adaptation to evolving threats, where alliances are secondary to the protection of assets and people. From this perspective, the security of a nation or business entity should remain paramount, and the geographical origin of the service provider may seem irrelevant if they can deliver the required protection effectively. On the other hand, critics contend that this decision sends a concerning message. The ties between Russia and various global conflicts, coupled with its international image, make this alliance potentially dangerous. For many, the involvement of a Russian-linked security provider raises questions about the larger geopolitical motivations at play. Is this a reflection of shifting political allegiances? Could it be a sign of growing influence or collaboration with regimes that have historically been at odds with Western ideals and values? These are the pressing questions that have emerged in the wake of this controversial choice. Furthermore, experts are cautious about the broader implications for the region and beyond. When one of the world's most influential figures makes a move like this, it sets a precedent. Countries, businesses, and organizations around the globe are now rethinking their own security partnerships, knowing that the geopolitical landscape is far from predictable. Trust is a delicate thing, and any move that undermines established relationships can lead to long-term consequences that are not always immediately visible. The economic repercussions are another area of concern. The decision to work with a Russian-affiliated security company could potentially lead to sanctions or strained relations with nations that view Russia as a threat. It could complicate future trade agreements, alliances, and diplomatic relations. With so many moving parts, this one decision might have a ripple effect that goes far beyond the immediate context of security. As the world processes this development, there is also the issue of perception. How does the international community view this? Is this a pragmatic move by a leader facing security challenges, or is it a sign of something more ominous? Public opinion will undoubtedly be divided, with some praising the boldness and others raising alarms about potential risks. In conclusion, this decision has triggered a complex and multifaceted debate that cuts across security, diplomacy, and international relations. The ramifications are still unfolding, and the world will be keenly observing the next steps taken. One thing is clear, this event has added yet another layer of uncertainty to the already unpredictable world stage. The appointment of a Russian-linked security firm by a prominent figure has stirred significant debate across the globe. This move has raised eyebrows in political, business, and diplomatic circles, with many questioning whether it signals a shift in geopolitical allegiances. The ties between the individual in question and the newly appointed security provider have not gone unnoticed, particularly against the backdrop of rising tensions in international relations. Some view this decision as a bold strategy, one that could bring new avenues for strengthening security, while others see it as a troubling development that could potentially alter the balance of power and influence in the region. At the heart of the debate is the potential shift in alliances this decision represents. Historically, security partnerships have been a reflection of a nation's or business's broader political allegiances, and the choice of a Russian-linked firm could be seen as a sign that the figure is distancing themselves from traditional Western allies. This change is particularly notable given the increasing geopolitical divides between Russia and many Western nations, particularly in the wake of ongoing tensions in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. Some analysts believe that this move could signal the emergence of a new alignment, one that could pave the way for future political collaborations or economic deals with Russia and its allies. There are those who argue that the move could be entirely pragmatic, a simple recognition of evolving security needs in an increasingly uncertain world. In a climate where international threats, be they cyber attacks, terrorism, or physical security breaches, are ever more complex and widespread, the priority should be on securing people, assets, and infrastructure, regardless of the political context. From this perspective, the Russian-linked firm may simply be the best option to meet security needs, offering a level of expertise and resources that others cannot match. This view holds that geopolitics should not overshadow the immediate necessity for protection, especially in industries or sectors where vulnerability is high and the stakes are even higher. However, this pragmatic approach is not without its detractors. Many critics argue that the decision to work with a firm tied to Russia is more than just a security choice, it is a political statement. Given the backdrop of Russia's controversial actions on the world stage, from its annexation of Crimea to its involvement in various proxy wars, many question the motivations behind such an alignment. For these critics, this move is seen not as a mere business decision, but as a shift toward a more politically risky partnership, one that could compromise the individual's standing among long-standing Western allies. They argue that such a decision could embolden Russia and other authoritarian regimes, signaling a willingness to collaborate with entities that may not align with the values and ideals of democracy and human rights. Beyond the immediate political ramifications, there are broader diplomatic concerns at play. In an interconnected world, diplomatic relationships are delicate and often shaped by small decisions that may not seem significant in isolation. By aligning with a Russian-linked security provider, this individual risks complicating relationships with countries that view Russia as a threat to global stability. Nations that are part of alliances like NATO, or those that have historically opposed Russian expansionism, may interpret this move as a signal that trust and cooperation are no longer guaranteed. As such, the decision could result in the fracturing of existing diplomatic ties, forcing the individual to navigate a more complicated and potentially hostile international landscape. The economic consequences of this choice are also an area of concern. In a world where global trade and investment are inextricably linked to the political climate, working with a Russian-affiliated company could have repercussions that extend far beyond security. Many countries have already imposed sanctions on Russian entities, and it is likely that this decision could lead to more scrutiny from international regulators and financial institutions. For businesses involved in trade with Western nations, the ramifications of such a partnership could include increased costs, regulatory barriers, or even the risk of being placed on sanctions lists. In a worst-case scenario, this move could isolate the individual from international markets, making it more difficult to engage in cross-border operations or secure necessary resources from key global partners. At the same time, it is possible that some view this decision as a bold strategic move, one that reflects a deeper understanding of the complexities of international relations. In a world where security threats are constantly evolving, the traditional boundaries of geopolitics may no longer be as relevant as they once were. For some, engaging with Russia or its affiliates might be seen as an opportunity to diversify security options and build relationships with a powerful player on the global stage. While this viewpoint may not resonate with everyone, it highlights the shifting dynamics in the world of international diplomacy and security. Public perception will undoubtedly play a crucial role in shaping how this decision is viewed in the long term. On the one hand, some will likely see this as a calculated risk, one that could ultimately prove beneficial if it leads to enhanced security and greater stability. On the other hand, others will view it as an endorsement of a regime with a track record of controversial actions and policies. In the end, the decision to appoint a Russian-linked security firm is one that has far-reaching implications, not just for the individual in question, but for the broader political and economic landscape. How the world reacts and whether this move proves to be a strategic success or a diplomatic misstep remains to be seen. The decision to appoint a security firm with links to Russia has sparked intense debate about the intersection of security needs and political priorities. On one side, many argue that in a world increasingly marked by complex security threats, pragmatic decisions regarding safety and protection must come first. As global security challenges evolve, whether through the rise of cyber warfare, the threat of terrorism, or growing geopolitical instability, protecting assets, personnel, and infrastructure is more critical than ever. From this perspective, the partnership with a Russian-affiliated security company is a simple, pragmatic move. It reflects a desire to prioritize security above all else, and the fact that the company in question offers a specialized service that others cannot match makes this decision a sensible one in the face of immediate threats. In this view, security is an urgent matter that should not be bogged down by broader political concerns. The world has become a more dangerous place, and for those in positions of power or leadership, ensuring the safety of resources and individuals is paramount. Some may argue that political ideologies, while important, should not override the practical necessities of safeguarding one's people and assets. In an era where traditional alliances are being tested, the need for effective security solutions might outweigh long-standing political affiliations. If a Russian-linked security provider is capable of delivering the level of protection required, then the political associations of that company may not be a relevant factor in the decision-making process. This perspective suggests that security decisions should be viewed through a purely utilitarian lens, where the end goal is ensuring the safety of those under threat, regardless of the geopolitical context in which that protection is provided. In many cases, the globalized nature of threats means that partnerships with firms from countries with differing political systems and ideologies are not just common but perhaps inevitable. The decision to seek security from any capable provider, even one with Russian ties, could be seen as an acknowledgement of the rapidly changing landscape of international security, where alliances are not always predictable and where pragmatism often trumps traditional political considerations. However, this viewpoint is not universally shared. Critics argue that the decision to engage with a Russian-linked security firm cannot simply be brushed aside as a practical matter. For them, the choice to do so carries significant political weight, and it is impossible to separate the need for security from the broader political implications. The Russian government's actions on the world stage, from its annexation of Crimea to its alleged interference in democratic elections, have left many wary of anything that might be perceived as collaboration with or endorsement of the Russian state. These critics argue that such a partnership could send a dangerous signal, one that suggests a willingness to disregard long-standing political relationships with Western allies in favor of new, potentially unstable alliances. For some, this decision is viewed not as a mere business transaction, but as a deeper political statement. They argue that when a figure of significant global influence chooses to work with a Russian-affiliated security provider, it is not only about ensuring the safety of assets, but also about signaling a shift in political allegiances. The risks of such a shift are significant, especially when it comes to trust. Trust is one of the cornerstones of international diplomacy, and once it is eroded, it can be incredibly difficult to rebuild. A decision like this raises serious questions about the motivations behind it. What does it say about the individual's political leanings, and what are the long-term implications for diplomatic relationships? Political leaders and business figures often navigate a delicate balance between their security needs and their political obligations. While security may be the immediate concern, the long-term consequences of such a move could alter the dynamics of their international relations. By choosing to work with a Russian-linked firm, the individual risks alienating countries that are critical of Russian actions, especially those within the European Union or NATO. For these countries, the decision could be seen as an implicit endorsement of Russian policies, or even a sign of growing sympathies with Russia's political agenda. This could undermine years of building trust and cooperation with Western allies, making future diplomatic endeavors more difficult. Moreover, critics fear that by prioritizing security needs above political considerations, the individual might unintentionally undermine the very principles of trust and loyalty that have defined international alliances for decades. In this view, security should never be considered in isolation from politics. The two are deeply interconnected, and every strategic decision made in the realm of security has the potential to influence or even reshape political relationships. When dealing with powerful entities like Russia, the decision to engage with one of their firms could have unintended consequences, leading to a shift in political alignments that may not be in the best interests of long-term global stability. Another concern is the potential risk of setting a dangerous precedent. If one individual or organization disregards political concerns in favor of security, it may encourage others to follow suit, leading to the normalization of partnerships with controversial or adversarial regimes. This could create an environment where political considerations are sidelined in favor of short-term solutions, thereby diminishing the importance of democratic values, human rights, and international law. In the long run, such a trend could erode the foundations of international cooperation and make the world a less secure place, not more. Ultimately, the debate about security versus politics is not simply about choosing between safety and ideological purity. It is about understanding the broader implications of such decisions. While the immediate need for protection is undeniably important, the long-term impact on trust, diplomatic relationships, and global stability must also be carefully considered. It is this delicate balance between addressing security concerns and safeguarding political relationships that defines the complexity of this decision. The choice made will resonate far beyond the individual's immediate circle, affecting global dynamics for years to come. The decision to align with a company linked to Russia has drawn sharp criticism from many corners of the international community, with detractors emphasizing the potential political implications of such a move. Critics argue that this association is far more than a simple business decision. It reflects a deeper and possibly troubling set of political leanings that could have significant consequences. Russia's role in global conflicts over recent years, coupled with its often fraught relationships with Western nations, makes any alliance with Russian-affiliated entities a subject of intense scrutiny and concern. Many opponents of this decision point to Russia's involvement in various contentious international matters as a reason to view this partnership with suspicion. Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 was widely condemned as a violation of international law and led to severe diplomatic fallout and economic sanctions from the West. Its ongoing involvement in the conflicts in Ukraine and Syria has only heightened tensions, fueling fears of instability and regional conflict. In addition, accusations of interference in foreign elections and cyber attacks have cast Russia as a disruptive force on the global stage. Given this backdrop, critics see any engagement with Russian-linked organizations as a tacit endorsement of, or at least indifference to, these contentious actions. For these critics, working with a Russian-affiliated security firm raises uncomfortable questions about the values and political stance of the individual making the decision. Aligning with such an entity may be perceived as signaling a shift away from traditional Western alliances toward a more ambiguous or even oppositional stance. This could be interpreted as a willingness to cooperate with a country whose policies and actions are often at odds with the principles of democracy, human rights, and international cooperation. In their view, the choice to engage a Russian-linked firm does not just compromise practical security concerns, but also represents a broader ideological alignment that may undermine the moral and political foundations upon which many international relationships are built. Critics also warn of the potential risks associated with trusting a security provider linked to a nation frequently accused of espionage and covert operations. Russia's intelligence agencies have been implicated in numerous incidents of spying, hacking, and misinformation campaigns targeting foreign governments and institutions. Given these facts, skeptics question the wisdom of entrusting sensitive security matters to an organization with possible ties to such activities. The potential for conflicts of interest or compromised information raises legitimate concerns about the safety and integrity of those relying on the firm's services. The criticism extends beyond the security implications to the broader diplomatic fallout that such an alliance might provoke. Many Western countries have already imposed economic sanctions on Russia in response to its foreign policies and military interventions. These sanctions reflect not only a desire to punish certain actions, but also to isolate Russia politically and economically. When a high-profile figure or entity chooses to work with a Russian-affiliated company, it risks undermining these collective efforts and weakening the unity of the international community's response. This can create fractures in long-standing coalitions, particularly among NATO members and European allies, who may view the move as a breach of solidarity. Moreover, the decision could jeopardize existing diplomatic relationships with countries that are hostile to Russia or wary of its intentions. For nations that have suffered directly from Russian aggression or influence, whether through military conflict, political interference, or economic pressure, this partnership might be seen as a betrayal or a dangerous gamble. It risks alienating key partners whose cooperation is often essential for security, trade, and regional stability. The long-term effects could include reduced diplomatic support, diminished economic cooperation, and increased suspicion or hostility. Some critics further argue that this move could embolden Russia by providing it with new avenues of influence and legitimacy on the global stage. Russia has often sought to expand its reach through strategic partnerships and alliances that challenge Western dominance. By engaging with Russian-affiliated entities, influential figures might inadvertently lend credibility to Russia's ambitions and signal that its isolation is weakening. This could encourage Moscow to pursue even more aggressive policies, confident that it can count on new allies, or at least sympathizers within powerful circles. There is also a broader concern about the precedent this sets for international norms and values. Engaging with Russian-linked companies might normalize such relationships, making them more acceptable or commonplace. This normalization risks eroding the collective international stance against practices perceived as aggressive, illegal, or unethical. It could weaken the resolve of other countries to uphold human rights, respect sovereignty, and maintain the rules-based international order. Over time, such shifts could contribute to greater global instability and undermine efforts to foster peace and cooperation. Criticism of this decision is not just about geopolitics, it is also a reflection of the deep mistrust that has grown between Russia and much of the Western world. This mistrust is rooted in decades of conflicting interests, competing ideologies, and ongoing confrontations in various theaters. In this context, choosing to work with a Russian-affiliated security provider is viewed as a highly provocative act, one that disregards the historical complexities and dangers involved. It calls into question the judgment of those involved and raises doubts about the motivations behind the decision. In summary, the criticisms surrounding the alliance with a Russian-linked company highlight significant concerns about political alignment, security risks, diplomatic consequences, and the broader impact on international norms. The decision is seen by many as a move that could undermine established alliances, erode trust, and embolden a nation widely regarded as a destabilizing force. As such, it remains a deeply contentious choice, one that has sparked heated debate and continues to provoke questions about the future direction of global relations. The decision to engage with a company linked to Russia carries significant economic and sanction-related risks that have prompted widespread concern among international observers. In today's interconnected global economy, such partnerships do not exist in isolation. They reverberate through financial markets, trade networks, and diplomatic channels, often with serious consequences. The choice to align with a Russian-affiliated entity, particularly given the current geopolitical climate, opens the door to potential economic fallout that could complicate business operations and financial relationships on a global scale. One of the primary concerns is the risk of sanctions. Since Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014 and its subsequent involvement in regional conflicts, many Western countries have imposed a range of economic sanctions designed to pressure the Russian government and limit its ability to operate freely on the international stage. These sanctions target key sectors of the Russian economy, including energy, finance, and defense, as well as specific individuals and companies with close ties to the Kremlin. Engaging with a Russian-linked security firm could expose the individual or organization involved to secondary sanctions or penalties, particularly if the firm is connected to entities or individuals already under sanction. This exposure not only threatens the financial stability of those involved, but also risks damaging reputations and trust with international partners. Financial institutions and multinational corporations are often highly cautious when dealing with companies that have Russian affiliations. Many banks, insurers, and investors have strict compliance programs designed to avoid any entanglement with sanctioned entities. A partnership with a Russian-linked security provider could trigger these compliance mechanisms, resulting in blocked transactions, frozen assets, or restricted access to essential financial services. The resulting financial isolation can make it difficult to conduct routine business operations, such as securing loans, making international payments, or accessing foreign investments. Over time, these limitations can stifle growth and hamper the ability to compete effectively in global markets. Beyond direct sanctions, there are broader economic implications to consider. Countries and companies often rely heavily on their reputations and networks when engaging in international trade and investment. A decision to work with a Russian-affiliated firm could lead to a loss of confidence among potential partners who may fear that their own operations could be jeopardized by association. This reputational risk can translate into reduced business opportunities, as suppliers, customers, and investors may seek to distance themselves to avoid regulatory scrutiny or political backlash. In highly competitive industries where trust and reliability are paramount, this could be a decisive disadvantage. Moreover, this choice may limit access to certain markets, particularly those aligned with Western sanctions policies. Governments in Europe, North America, and other regions have made clear their intent to isolate Russian interests economically and diplomatically. Companies or individuals who appear to circumvent or ignore these policies risk being blacklisted, effectively shutting them out of key markets. This exclusion not only reduces revenue streams, but also restricts access to innovation, technology, and partnerships that are critical for long-term success. In an era where global supply chains are complex and interdependent, any disruption can have cascading effects, affecting not only the immediate parties but also their broader networks. The risks are further compounded by the unpredictability of the geopolitical environment. Sanctions regimes can evolve rapidly in response to new developments, and what is permissible today might become forbidden tomorrow. This uncertainty makes planning and risk management exceptionally difficult for those involved with Russian-linked entities. Companies must navigate a constantly shifting landscape of regulations, often requiring costly legal advice and compliance programs to avoid inadvertent violations. The financial and operational burdens of such compliance can be substantial, diverting resources away from core business activities and innovation. Additionally, the potential for indirect economic repercussions should not be underestimated. For example, suppliers and contractors may be hesitant to engage with companies that have controversial partnerships, fearing reputational damage or regulatory complications. This hesitation can lead to delays, increased costs, and reduced efficiency, further undermining the viability of the enterprise. Investors may also take a more cautious approach, demanding higher returns to compensate for increased risk or choosing to withdraw support altogether. Over time, these factors can erode the financial health and competitive position of any organization linked to a Russian-affiliated company. There is also the broader impact on economic diplomacy and cooperation to consider. International economic relations often serve as a platform for political dialogue and conflict resolution. By engaging with Russian-linked entities, an individual or organization might inadvertently undermine efforts to maintain economic pressure on Russia as a tool to influence its behavior. This could weaken the overall effectiveness of sanctions and diplomatic initiatives aimed at promoting stability and peace. In this sense, the economic choice carries political weight, with the potential to affect not only business outcomes, but also international relations more broadly. Furthermore, the reputational damage caused by such an association can extend beyond immediate economic consequences. In a world where corporate social responsibility and ethical considerations play an increasingly prominent role, stakeholders, including customers, employees, and shareholders, may demand accountability for decisions perceived as politically or morally questionable. This pressure can lead to internal conflicts, reduced employee morale, and public relations challenges that compound the economic risks. In conclusion, the decision to work with a Russian-affiliated security company presents a complex web of economic and sanction-related risks. These risks include the potential for direct financial penalties, difficulties accessing global financial systems, reputational harm, limited market access, and challenges in regulatory compliance. Beyond these immediate concerns, the choice may weaken broader diplomatic efforts and create lasting damage to trust and cooperation in international economic relations. For those involved, navigating this environment requires careful consideration of not only the security benefits, but also the far-reaching economic consequences that could shape their future for years to come. The global reaction to the decision to partner with a Russian-linked security firm is expected to be deeply divided, reflecting broader tensions in international politics and varying perspectives on security and diplomacy. This move will undoubtedly shape public perception and influence how the individual in question is viewed on the world stage, with significant implications for their global standing and the relationships they maintain with allies and adversaries alike. On one hand, there are those who will interpret the decision as a pragmatic and intelligent response to pressing security concerns. In a world where threats are increasingly sophisticated and unpredictable, choosing the most capable security provider, regardless of its geopolitical associations, can be seen as a sign of strong leadership and strategic foresight. Supporters may argue that this move prioritizes the immediate safety and protection of assets, personnel, and interests, recognizing that traditional alliances do not always guarantee the best solutions in every circumstance. From this perspective, the decision reflects a focus on practical results rather than ideological rigidity, which could be viewed positively by stakeholders who value effectiveness and adaptability in an uncertain global environment. This viewpoint emphasizes the complexity of modern security challenges, where cyber threats, terrorism, espionage, and hybrid warfare require cutting-edge expertise and resources. If the Russian-linked firm offers unique capabilities that are unavailable elsewhere, opting for their services might be seen as a rational choice made in good faith to enhance security measures. For many, this approach could signal a willingness to think beyond conventional boundaries and to make tough decisions in pursuit of safeguarding vital interests. It may also indicate an understanding that in an interconnected world, collaboration with diverse partners, even those from politically contentious countries, can sometimes be necessary to navigate the multifaceted risks that exist today. However, this optimistic view is likely to be met with significant skepticism and concern by others, both domestically and internationally. For many observers, especially those aligned with Western countries or who have experienced the consequences of Russian geopolitical maneuvers firsthand, this move will appear as an alarming shift in allegiances. It may be seen as a step away from established alliances and a softening of stances toward a country whose policies have been widely criticized and sanctioned for undermining international norms. This perception risks casting the individual as someone willing to compromise on core values or to overlook the broader implications of partnering with entities tied to a regime associated with aggression and interference. Such critics may interpret the decision as not only a security choice but a political statement, signaling openness to closer ties with Russia or a challenge to Western dominance in global affairs. This could provoke distrust among long-standing allies, who might question the individual's commitment to shared values and cooperative defense arrangements. In diplomatic circles, this might translate into a cooling of relationships, reduced intelligence sharing, or less enthusiastic support in international forums. The perception of shifting loyalties can have profound consequences, undermining the trust that underpins alliances and collaborative efforts on security, trade, and governance. Public opinion will also play a crucial role in shaping the broader narrative. In many countries, awareness of Russia's controversial role on the world stage has fostered wariness or outright hostility toward partnerships perceived as supportive of its interests. Media coverage and political discourse could amplify concerns, framing the decision as reckless or provocative. This negative framing can influence voters, business leaders, and civil society, potentially leading to protests, boycotts, or calls for greater transparency and accountability. For the individual involved, this could mean a decline in domestic popularity or increased scrutiny from watchdog groups and opposition parties. Conversely, there may be segments of the global population or specific regions that view the move more favorably, either because they hold a more neutral or even positive view of Russia, or because they prioritize pragmatic security solutions over political symbolism. In some cases, this might lead to new opportunities for cooperation and influence in areas where Russia has significant presence or interest. The individual's willingness to engage with diverse partners could be interpreted as a form of realpolitik, demonstrating flexibility and a readiness to challenge the status quo in pursuit of national or organizational goals. The long-term impact on global influence is difficult to predict, but undeniably significant. How this decision is perceived will shape future interactions with other world leaders, international organizations, and multinational corporations. It could either enhance the individual's reputation as a decisive actor capable of making tough security choices, or damage their credibility and limit their ability to build coalitions. The reaction may also affect the willingness of other countries to enter into agreements, share sensitive information, or support joint initiatives. Moreover, this perception will extend beyond formal diplomatic or economic channels into the realm of soft power. Public image, cultural influence, and international goodwill are crucial assets in today's globalized world. A decision seen as controversial or divisive can erode these intangible resources, making it harder to project influence or win support for broader agendas. On the other hand, a well-justified security decision that balances pragmatism with respect for international concerns can strengthen standing and open doors to new partnerships. In conclusion, the world's reaction to this appointment is likely to be a complex mix of approval and alarm, shaped by differing priorities and political perspectives. The decision will play a pivotal role in defining the individual's global image and influence, impacting diplomatic relationships, public opinion, and international cooperation. Navigating this divided response will require careful communication and strategic engagement to mitigate risks and maximize opportunities in an increasingly polarized global environment.